Hi, good morning, everyone. This is Kenneth Price, and this is Sunday, January 15th, and this is our 60th Sunday morning Zoom call for a ministry I'm hosting. It's psychiatricsobriety.com, and it's a ministry that I started on or about October of 2021 because there's a need for this message, folks. I'm 55 years old, and this is my introduction to the Zoom call, by the way. This is being recorded for YouTube. I'm 55 years old, and when I was a young man, I got caught in a very common trap, a psychiatry trap, where they prescribed pills for various reasons. I had trauma, and the pills were very helpful at first. The medications, folks, which I'm not going to judge and we're not going to criticize in any way, over time began to stunt my growth and began to create more problems than they were ever solving. So on or about, my 40s, late 40s, I realized the problem, and I had to get off of all the pills. And by that time, there were countless pills. Just the psychiatrists, the pharmaceutical companies kept coming up with more pills, and the psychiatrists kept prescribing more, and it became a chemical soup. It was a problem. And so what I did was I got off everything, which took a lot of work. And I went in a completely different direction in life. I went from allopathy to spirituality. And when I began to emerge from all that mental illness and all those withdrawals, I saw that there was a need for a ministry for people who were in the same place that I once was and who were crying for help like I once was. And so, lo and behold, I created a website called psychiatricsobriety.com and began to host these Sunday morning Zoom calls. This is number 60, and they're fantastic. And it's just something I'm not any credentialed life coach, a credentialed minister. I'm not a credentialed doctor, but you don't need credentials. When a person emerges from something of that nature, we're fully qualified. Experience is my qualification. So anyway, I like to give this 5-minute introduction. And the reason I call it a ministry is it was by the grace of God that I emerged from all that. And grace. I'm a Course in Miracles student. I'm not when I say ministry, we're not talking about any sort of religion here. We're not gonna add any beliefs onto you, except for the belief in a higher power. So that's basically my 5-minute introduction. All right, so I've got Greg, and we got somebody new on board, Cristiano. But before I go any further, the one last thing I need to do is just throw in a few disclaimers. Is that, folks, I'm not telling anybody to get off their meds. That would be reckless, and that would be dangerous, and that would be unkind. This ministry and these Zoom calls for people who have already realized that getting off meds is in there. You don't have to be off meds. I don't put any stipulations, but generally people realize that they've chosen to get off their meds, and they're looking for support. And that's where I come in. I'm a wounded healer. So anyway, that's it. That's my 5-minute introduction. We got Greg and we got Cristiano on board. Cristiano, you're brand new. We've been texting back and forth, messaging. I'd like to hear anything you've got to share. I'm glad you made it. You want to introduce yourself, and how can we serve you for the next hour?
Yes, hi Kenneth. Must I put my camera on, because I'm on a cell phone, not really in the best place. Would you?
It's up to you, buddy. Just having you show up is fine. So whatever you're most comfortable with.
Okay, I'll start with audio because I'm not that decent for now. Yes, I like what you said. I liked your posts. I liked your group, what you had. I'm living in South Africa, and I've got a similar sort of I wouldn't say exact story as you, a similar story. But I've been through 27 years of the mental so-called health system, and they trap you, like you said. But in hindsight, it's not really a trap. I think it's a mystical rite of passage, whatever you want to call it, in terms of what Dr. Stan Grof says. And we share this same commonality. I don't like to subscribe to anything, but I've also been a Course in Miracles student for 20 years or so, and I've actually had many mystical sort of experiences. I think you can relate to that. But at the same time, I don't subscribe to anything. like besides a higher power in terms of where we are now. And I'm still over the years I've gone through various schools of thought, whether it be Carlos Castaneda, whether it be Dianetics, whether it be various schools, practical school of philosophy, and I resonate most probably with A Course in Miracles more than anything else. I don't like to mix and match, but that's basically my foundation for grounding. I'm still over the years, over the 20 years, been in various mental institutions, most of the time forced institutional, because your family and your friends and the community get indoctrinated that once you've got a tag of, say, mental ill or bipolar or things like that, and you have an altered state of consciousness or your mood changes somewhat, I mean, that's a red flag for anyone, and automatically psychiatrists and the authorities have got power to put you away whenever they want. They can come to your house and arrest you, and that's it, and you're away for 3-4 months at a time. And unfortunately, that became a habit. That became not a habit. I think I got to take responsibility and accountability for where I am. And at the same time, I've managed to maneuver myself as far away as possible from psychiatry, utilizing them when I can, and just utilizing my environments when I can, because I had to be creative in living in a Western society, not acknowledging these experiences, these spiritual emergencies. And all the research I've done over the 27 years, not knowing what was happening to me, not knowing what was going on, I think, and I've met many people over the years, just living in the unknown and just trying different things and seeing how I can exist, and living in the world but not of it. At the same time, psychiatry has its purpose, I think, wherever I was in a state. But now, basically, I am just on the one medication, which is sodium valproate. That's all I'm on. And that it doesn't seem to have any effect on me. Besides, I think, as you say in the Course of Miracles, the unconscious mind has accepted it where I am right now. But I think there are many alternatives, and I think I do want to actually get off it. In terms of at now, when I've tried in the past, there's never an environment to actually do it in. There's never a safe environment to actually explore that and actually allow these experiences to take place. That is the number one key, I think. An environmental facility, because there's a psych ward every block. There's a psych ward that can take you in. So I think that is the key, an environment to actually wean off something like that. There's many alternatives, whether it be from a physical point of view, whether it be probiotics or glycobiology from a spiritual point of view, Course in Miracles, whatever. There's many alternatives you can actually take. Meditation, if you do want to wean off, and you do, maybe it's time to wean off. There's no real facilities available, I think, in terms of actually, but I'm not in a desperate state. I'm just more in a state where I think there's so much ignorance. There's so much ignorance around this topic, around mental health, around mental illness, and there's so much propaganda around it that people think that, once you're labeled, they've given you a label and that's it. They don't understand. They don't want to listen to another side of the story in terms of what my side of the story is of my own life. That is quite, that's quite sobering.
Cristiano, that's
yeah, you got it down, man.
You've just made my whole Sunday, Cristiano, by showing up and sharing everything that this ministry is designed and engineered to address. I've taken all these notes because you covered all the bases already. I can pick one and we can do a topic for everything.
Thank you.
Since you're a Course in Miracles student, and by the way, I'm living in the Course in Miracles, spiritual community right now. I'm remodeling one in Cincinnati, Ohio. I'm not working for, but I'm living in David Hoffmeister's Peace House. And
are you?
Because he's my teacher, one of the things I wrote down that you said is we do have to step off into the unknown. He teaches all the metaphysics of the Course in Miracles, and one thing he prefaces that in order for the Course in Miracles to take effect, we've got to have faith, which I try to emphasize as gently as possible in all of my calls, because in my story, I got indoctrinated, like a lot of us did with religions, and his faith is believe in the blood of Jesus. Well, that doesn't sound like it's going to be very helpful. I know they meant well, but it was kind of an skewed, fear-based system. But truly, you did say step off into the unknown, and the interesting thing about all of us, Cristiano and Chris and Greg, is that we're the generation that is being called to step up. With a lot of us, I said, where are the precedents? Where are the precedents? Who can I follow? Well, I'm going to have to follow Spirit, because in human form, we've not had prototypes for getting off these meds yet.
Nothing.
No, and
it's very strange. After 20 years, you think it'd be something, but I can't seem to see anything. It's like it really is in terms of the prototypes of this.
And we gotta laugh at this, otherwise we're gonna take it serious. And if we take it serious, we're never gonna get off the meds. So you're right.
Yes,
we have to be disciplined, but I'm not going to throw serious. I've tried being serious and healing, and it's not worked. But truly, we are the first generation that is now going to this is uncharted waters, and that's why I'm so excited about this ministry, because I get to start something as small as it is. My last YouTube only got like 25 views. I don't care. I don't really care, because I know, and Chris has been, we'll have him go next. Chris has been a huge supporter. He just keeps encouraging me to go on. And you're right, Cristiano. I'm not here to judge psychiatry, because those pills probably saved my life as a young man. But I was crying for help. And, the Course in Miracles goes even further. The Course in Miracles is a cry for love. I could go. I mean, you mentioned, I wrote just some of the things I wrote down. You said that psychiatry traps us, but then you backed off and you realized, because I can't go into victim, but if I'm gonna meet a person where they're at, I can use a little bit of victim language. Yeah, we got trapped, but for our benefit. I chose. I have to take responsibility at a metaphysical level. I chose to let myself get trapped, but most of us aren't at the deep metaphysical understandings yet.
Yes.
You mentioned Stanislav. Oh, absolutely. Carlos Castaneda, mental institutions, spiritual emergencies, what a shaman sees at a mental hospital. That's on my website. So all that stuff. And as far as the labels go, that was the most frightening thing for me to start this ministry. As I said, if I go public with all my mental illnesses, everyone's going to know all my dirty laundry. And I've shared this before. I said, I'm frightened. When I went deeper down the rabbit hole, I realized that I was concerned about the reputation of my own dream character. Or you can even go so far as to call it a cartoon character. This is why reputations are so asinine, is to actually be concerned what other people are going to think of me, when if you go down the rabbit hole deep enough, you realize there are no others. Truly, I mean, I go real deep. That's why I'm not a real popular person. I go real deep, but there are no others. It's all a reflection, and I mean, it's hard to take responsibility when we realize the world is only a reflection of what we're thinking and believing, in our own minds. And once I digested that truth, it was the end of all my mental illnesses in the beginning of the work. But so I can kind of chuckle at it now. It's full. It doesn't need to be called the Course in Miracles. It can be called, full responsibility.
Yeah.
It's true. Right? That's why so many people throw it across the room.
Yeah. Did you say what full responsibility?
Full responsibility. So
that is. Go ahead.
Well, this is why I had to finally immerse myself and just move into one of these communities, which was even harder if you want to live in one. But the people here say you're not responsible for what you do. I'm like, I'm not. And they say, no, you're responsible for what you think. Now that is hardcore, because I'm not, every thought that runs through my mind, I have to take responsibility for that. But that's how I emerged out of all those mental illness narratives. But of course you have to have tools and resources to, for those thoughts. But I want to create just the container that is missing right now. Yeah, we got a lot of psych wards, but I want to create, solutions. Well, we've been doing it for a year. Chris,
Right.
tired of talking, Chris, your turn.
Hey, morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yeah, I kind of came in late to the conversation, but nice to meet you. Cristiano, is it?
Yes, yes. We go with Chris or Christian also.
It's great, man. Well, nice to meet you, and thanks for joining. Yeah, I mean, looking for alternatives. I came in when you were talking about the fact that there are alternatives, and it is interesting that there's such little resources, for this. That's why I love this group so much. But I do think there's more resources now than probably ever before. Not that there's many, but yeah, it's interesting. Ever since I joined this group, it's so shifted the lens in which I view the world and view mental health and treatment through drugs. And it's funny sometimes. And we talk about this all the time, but since you're new, Cristiano, then you feel crazy in a new way. Now you're like, oh, I feel like I found the way out of this maze, and I'm looking back, and there's all these people on these meds, and a lot of them are saying all the things I used to say, like they believe in chemical imbalance, and it's not drugs, it's their medicine, and they're really, really sick. Like they're so messed up. They're on, 6 pills. It's like, I'm on 6 pills, so that proves I'm messed up. It's like this really backwards way of thinking once you start to exit the maze, or the dark forest, as you call it, Kenneth. And so I try to just have compassion and not, just realize everyone's on their own journey, because I was that way for 20 years. I defended my medication. Yeah. How dare you, say I don't need this. So I think, it's like, I think it's like a lot of dances with drugs, that the individual at some point needs to come to a realization that this way of living is not working. It's interesting now that I'm coming off of Paxil after almost 25 years. I now can listen to recovering alcoholics or recovering drug addicts, and I really resonate with their message. And I think that's very telling, because at the end of the day, we're searching for an outside substance to take away emotional pain. That's how I look at all psych drugs now. They're just emotional painkillers. Opiates are physical painkillers. Street drugs are trying to relieve emotional pain. Alcohol's doing the same thing. Or even non-drug addictions, right? Food, sex, porn, whatever. And all of these coping mechanisms seem to point to like a core issue, a core pain that we're all trying to either relieve or understand or run from. That's usually when we reach for the alternative substance. So these days I'm trying to better understand what's at the core. What drove me to take the pills? We were talking about responsibility. At the end of the day, I took the pills. And what was I running from? And what was I so scared of? And so these days I'm trying to look at those things rather than focus on symptoms and diagnoses and how do I feel better? It's like, well, I want to understand myself. I think that's when I may feel better. So anyway, that's where I'm at. Just wanted to share.
I love Chris. I just love when you show up. I've told you that before. Your participation. I love when all you guys show up. But what? I was watching a Teal Swan video a couple of years ago, and she finally nailed it. She said, "We're not here to feel better. We're here to get better at feeling." And that's the hard part for me, Chris. I'm getting nailed here. At the community, I'm doing a whole bunch of construction work, and someone walks, I'm watching the messengers, they do their best to set an example, you know, and no one's perfect, but when they have grievances, they voice them right there on the spot when they're happening. I don't do that. I stuff it, try and be a nice guy, and it's not working for me because I go to bed with a grievance. This is what happened, you know, 3 hours ago. It was 3 hours ago. I've got to get better. Not only I got to get better at feeling, I got to get better at expressing. But
how many people have gotten mentally ill because they want to keep the peace, right? Yeah, keep the peace. Don't say that thing. Just stuff it down, and then eventually, yeah, you're gonna have issues.
My mother taught me that. She's, you know, be good, be nice. It you know, it doesn't work. But the other thing I wanted to mention, Chris, is I love your questions. I mean, you're asking the questions you know, this is when I first started this ministry. People thought I had a solution to withdrawals, and they, you know, they were asking me questions I couldn't answer. But you're asked. This is what I love about you showing up, is you ask questions, you know, that can be answered. You know, not by me, but by Great Spirit. You know, who am I and why am I here? Now, Great Spirit's gonna say, oh boy, now we're gonna start throwing. We never know what the answers. The answers generally don't look like they're answers. They actually, but I'm here to guarantee that we get shown what we need to get shown, to see it's all a reflection, to unbelieve ourselves out. You know why my teacher explains, you know, why this is so difficult for us, because it's an impossible situation for everyone. It's impossible now, but that's not, you know, to take ourselves out with suicide. That's to stop believing in it and stop taking it serious and just start enjoying it. In other words, I haven't been able to do that full time, but you know, I have to teach what I need to learn. So here I am.
Yeah, man. And needing some kind of, like, I don't know, what you're saying kind of reminds me of just the idea of letting go and surrendering to the process. You know, our minds are what got us sick, you know, and thinking we could solve these issues on our own. And I'm reminded of a conversation I had with my mother-in-law, actually, right before I started tapering off my Paxil. It was like April of 2021. And I was explaining to her that I was on these meds and I've been doing some research, and I think I'm going to finally start trying to get off of them. And after a long discussion about it, my mother-in-law was like, she's like, man, I think, she's like, you need Jesus. And it kind of hit me in a weird way at the time, because I had, you know, grown up in the church and I had left it for many years. But now looking back on that conversation, she was right. Not that it necessarily needed to be Jesus, but there's something about this process of finding out who you are, getting to that deep core pain, or whatever you want to call this journey, that we do need a higher power. I mean, Alcoholics Anonymous, they figured this out. And it's like, hey, pick your higher power. It almost doesn't matter. It's all kind of the same anyway, right? But it's this process of, you know, humility, letting go of control, and maybe also just being okay with not having all the answers, not knowing, having that faith.
Chris, you've got it all. There was nothing I could ever possibly teach you, but you know, it's just, I just love when you show up so I can support you. That was the mistake that I made, and I know that's the whole mistake. I think psychiatry, you know, where it misses the boat is, you're right. I mean, we need to look at it, but we can't look at it with the ego. You know, it's like what Einstein said, you can't solve a problem with the same mind that created the problem. And psychiatry turns into, you know, if left, you know, unbridled without a higher power, it just turns into, you just keep digging and digging and digging, and it goes nowhere. I don't want to judge psychiatry, but you're right. There has to be an outside. You're right. Bill W. had it figured out. And that's why I had such a difficult time in so many of those medicine ceremonies, is I wasn't anchored to any, I wasn't sufficiently anchored. And the messenger here brought it up, you know, very clearly, because it's hard to be in a spiritual community, but she nailed it. Now, they're all using the word Jesus around here, which I'm still it's still very uncomfortable for me because I'm still got flashbacks to the 80s. If you don't know Cristiano, I came out as a gay man in the 80s, and the Christians were not very nice to us in the name of Jesus, of course. But the more I researched the Course in Miracles, the more I realized that was some sort of a middle-aged Jesus. That was some sort of a Roman interpretation of Jesus that had nothing to do. The biblical Jesus was terribly bastardized. The Course in Miracles was channeled by the Course in Miracles was obviously not channeled by a human being, and the author says Jesus Christ of Nazareth. That Jesus I'll listen to. He's onto something deep and something profound that doesn't know gay or straight, doesn't know black or white, doesn't know any of that, but he explains it metaphysically. So finally, you're right. I got to look at it with Jesus, just not that sacrificial, Anukai God. I'm sorry. That part is still a mystery to me because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
No, I hear you. And I don't even know what I believe these days, But all I know is I used to be just, I was an atheist. I swore off all religion due to my, my upbringing. And so I know I'm not that. I know I'm not atheist, but as far as what I believe, I have no clue. So I'm trying to figure it out. But knowing that, man, there's something, or there's some kind of power that can be tapped into. There's someone kind of watching out for us. I don't know. It definitely feels like, it feels like I at least knew. I thought I knew, and now at least I can admit that I have no idea what the hell is going on.
That's what we used to. And go ahead, Cristiano. I want you to participate more.
Yes, I can relate to what Chris says in terms of probably coming when you think you know something, and the neck gets blown out the water, and then and all come whatever we believe in, whether it be Course, whatever faith you're coming from, it's all one power, all one, wherever it is. But I think for me right now, where I am is my main priority, my only real priority is to know thyself. Whether it be a Bible, whether it be Course in Miracles, whether it be anything, is to know who you are and know who I am. And it sounds very cliched, but wherever I've been, whatever school of thought I participated in, it always basically came back to knowing who I am and knowing. Once you know who you are, it's not really. I think the questions disappear. I think David Hoffmeister says it as well. Basically, there's not going to be any more questions. As basically, the Course in Miracles can be stipulated into one thing in terms of nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, and therein lies the peace of God. But I like the way he summarizes it. He's very simplistic about it. So you don't know anything, but essentially it brings you back to yourself, and essentially just to know who you are and know thyself, and that's it. And that's once you know that, I think essentially to your call, I think the questions will stop.
It's kind of like that old adage that made a believer out of me. I've seen miracles in my life popping in. They're starting to pop like popcorn, starting to. And the thing that drives me nuts about David Hoffmeister, which is exactly why he's my teacher. Jesus this, Jesus that, Jesus like. Does he have to use Jesus? Apparently he does. And he knows I cringe, but he's generally happy. He is happy, and he finally, he is, and it drives us all nuts here. They tried. Everybody they tried to poison him once. They left out sour milk. They said, "Oh, this guy's not real." They put sour milk in the refrigerator. He walked the refrigerator, just poured it in, drank it. They said it doesn't work. We can't. That's stories like that. Yes. But the thing I like about David Hoffman is he finally said it. He said, "You don't need the Course in Miracles." He said, all these paths, they're all pointing. He said this is a damn badass path. It's the deepest teachings known to mankind. But he said, you don't need it. He said, all you need to do is trust and follow.
Yes. I think Bruce Lee said it as well. He said, I was watching a movie with Bruce Lee the other night, one of his latest movies, and he said, don't confuse the finger pointing to the moon as the moon itself. So, and I was also watching that itself is also, it tells you everything in terms of people get, I think also in the Course in Miracles groups, which I've been through over the years, many, Ken Wapnick groups and Gary Renard groups and David Hoffmeister groups. I mean, I get into discussions with these people, and Matt, I think like you, I'm very direct. Well, I have been in the past, very, very direct. Online, I don't see how I can be kind with words online when I'm just telling it like it is. And then it says, you're too honest and this and that. You're very honest and very direct, which we like. You like it, but then when I say it, then you don't like it. So you come with this kindness. I can't be kind online when I'm telling you how it is. So I got a little bit of beef with most of the Course in Miracles students, not the Course in Miracles itself, I think. A lot of them in terms of over the years. But I like also what Eckhart Tolle said about that in terms of sometimes there's a Zen saying, he says, even with the Course in Miracles, not that I am there now, I think, I'm not saying I'm there, where he is, he said, when you, whatever path, even the Course in Miracles, where you cross the water, where you cross the river and you reach the other side with a boat or with a raft, you don't pick up the raft and take it with you and you carry it on your shoulders, because it becomes a major crutch and it becomes a problem and it starts to actually interfere more than anything else, because you gotta let that raft go in the water.
I finally had a mighty companion who had been, she found Living Miracles years before I did, and she'd lived here, and people would come and live for various lengths of time, and she finally said, you know what it is, Ken? Because I said, Tamara, they're not enlightened here. She kind of got a giggle, and she said, no, Kenneth, they're not. She said they still have all their own grievances, but they're not judging the grievances. Now that was the game changer. She said they just don't judge it, and that I was able to hear, because I don't know if I have a friend who's in prison. One of my close, David Hoffmeister, introduced me to Dale Crow. He was a famous prize fighter who's served 18 of a 20-year sentence. He was convicted of murder when he was in his 20s, and so he's in Ohio. And I go, now that I'm in Ohio, I'm in Cincinnati now. I've gone to see him twice, and I'm going to go see him again. It's kind of far. It takes me about 2.5 hours to drive out there, but we've been exchanging letters for several years. David introduced us, and he's used the prison as a ashram. That's his. He's really transformed himself based on the Course in Miracles, and we talk every Saturday on the phone every Saturday morning. He gets a half hour he can call. They're all monitored, of course, but what did he finally say to me yesterday? He was just pointing in a way I could hear. I have a hard time, Cristiano, hearing a lot of the messengers, a lot of housewives. I don't listen to. I'm not going to hear the Course in Miracles from a housewife. It's just not going to sink in. But when I hear it from a man who committed murder and is in prison and has transformed himself, he has my full attention. And he's, because he doesn't use a whole lot of spiritual language. He uses homey and a whole bunch of street language. That's my language. But he said to me yesterday on the phone, not as a spiritual teacher, but because he's doing it himself, that he said, that's not, what did he say? He said, I have it written down here in the hallway. I forgot where my notes are, but he said, that's not you. He said it. He said, that's not you. He didn't, not that he said, you need to know who you are, but he said, that's not you. And that's not you. And that's not you. He was netty. I follow it, but he was doing it because he spent so many years in isolation, just praying for help, and it's coming from the inside way to help with the Course in Miracles, of course, but he's doing the work. He's not out there, preaching the gospel. He's the real deal there. I don't know, maybe it's just because him and I were supposed to. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, no, I don't want to disturb you.
Well, and these are the kind of miracles. It's when I do it. We'll get to it in a minute, Greg. I'm sorry, I haven't gotten to you yet. But this is, this is what my miracles are looking like. Not, it's not like the miracles have ever taken away my pain. It's not taken away the pain. It's the miracles are giving me all these resources to unbelieve the man who's in all that pain. I don't, by 55, I've given up trying to heal myself. I realized, if I would have healed myself, it would have happened by now. What I can do is know who I am and let the unhealed person just unbelieve him. And instead of healing, I'm experiencing love. And if you want to go one step further, I don't care if I have mental illness anymore, because it doesn't need, I don't care anymore. I got too much purpose in life, too much. I'm too busy to because the dream characters, every dream character has a mental illness. If they believe in that's why Dave has been so helpful. He said, if you believe in the ego, you have a mental illness. So there. He started giggling. And I said, this guy pegged it. We're being diagnosed by it's the blind leading the blind. They're telling us we have a mental illness, and if you're a psychiatrist, you have to believe in the ego. So therefore, every psychiatrist is mentally ill. But they're just getting paid. This is ridiculous. They're getting paid all this money because David finally pegged it when he explained that the ego is. That's the depth of these teachings. The ego is mental illness. Now we've got a level playing field. Okay, every human being who believes in that, belongs in a psych ward. Maybe planet Earth is a psych ward, and
very
that's
much so.
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
I believe. In terms of my experiences, in terms of what I can relate to that, it really is, and you can't take it seriously because it's making less and less sense.
Yeah. and this laughter is our escape hatch. It's authentic laughter because we've lived it.
Yes.
We're not out there. I'm so tired of these Course in Miracles teachers who are just reading the book. They're trying to explain to us. It does me no good anymore.
No, it's they intellectualize it too much. And that's the whole spirit of it gone. That's why I like Eckhart Tolle. He actually doesn't intellectualize it at all. He's actually experienced it. He's experienced that. The bliss. That's why I like it in terms of, in terms of the Course in Miracles, the way he explains it. He's not really a teacher, I think, but I think for other Course in Miracles, but just the way he's experienced, just in that power of now. He's been around for 30 years. He's written nothing else besides that and the New Earth, I think. So that's about it. But I still can't argue with anything that he's written in terms of, it's almost a perfect book. So from a human point of view, it really is. I think it's enlightened in many ways. I think it's difficult to argue with it. It's very practical. I think from a practical perspective, in terms of teachers, I find
the hardest thing for me was that when I started hitting my late 40s, and I'll almost get into your Greg. Just hold on a few more minutes. But getting my late 40s, early 50s, and I had no footing in this world. Zero. I was losing all footing in this world. But there was a sort of a pole shift in my story. I can't explain it because it didn't happen overnight, but I realized oh no, I don't have a footing in this world, to thank goodness I never. If I would have succeeded in this world, in order to succeed in the world, you have to believe in the ego. It's a setup. That's why Jesus hung out with the tax collectors and the prostitutes. He knew Jesus won't compromise. He said, you either unbelieve at all or you're that's now that may sound like fundamental. That's where the Christians got it wrong when they said it's an all or nothing. It's an all or nothing. Either you believe in the ego or you don't believe in the ego. And right now, by the time you get to this place, we've exhausted every ego. I even exhausted all my healing modalities. I exhausted them all. And that's the perfect place, because now it's the same prayer that Helen Schuckman and Bill Thetford said, is there's got to be a better way. And that's when not miracles in the form of we're going to heal you to get you to get you back to work. No, miracles to end to say you don't need. So basically, Jesus comes in and say, "I got this." But will you let me drive the car from now on? That's what David Hoffmeister says. Greg, how's it sitting for you, buddy? We didn't get you until about 40 minutes in. You got to unmute yourself.
I'm just not that talkative. I really
Right,
don't have much to say.
I don't want to. I just want to give you fair, billing for this complicated. That's why I'm not popular, because we go so deep. Who wants to go deep? But it is why we record it, because we got to record. I don't know. Chris has always said something's going to come of this ministry. I don't know what's going to come of this ministry, but something. I don't know. I don't.
Oh,
know.
I was going to say something though. What have y'all seen our pharmaceutical friend? I forget his name.
I was thinking
Watson.
about him. Watson. Yeah.
Yeah, hadn't seen him in a while.
You guys use the group chat. Reach out to him, and while we're at it, you guys reach out to Tyler. I'm exhausted, but you guys do whatever you can for that young man. He jumped off the Xanax, or I shouldn't mention the pill. And if you don't know Cristiano, he's just a delightful young man. And I don't want to go into his story because it's confidentiality. But if you can reach out to him,
Which do I know Tyler?
he's on our
I don't
group
know if
chat.
I've met him either.
Yeah, he's on the group chat.
Okay.
He hasn't come on his Zoom call.
Oh, okay.
I shouldn't have mentioned his name. I don't know. I'm not
You can erase it, right?
very. I don't know how to do that.
Okay.
Oh well, nobody watches this anyway.
Is the group chat, is that on Facebook, Kenneth?
Actually, you know what? Somebody in the Facebook group, they said that they had been watching us every time, and they said they had been following our stories.
I know.
Wow.
A lot of people won't come on, and because I record these, and
Yeah.
because that's all right. If I don't know who it's supposed to reach, I have no idea. And I've been so busy working, the last 4 months, and I haven't had time to do any advertising. Just the regulars keep coming back. I don't know what's supposed to happen with this.
I think it's very good in terms of not knowing what's going on, in terms of why and where, any plan. I think it's excellent in terms of not knowing what's going to happen.
All I know is, like, when I was looking for information, and then once I started tapering and I was just, hit with a sledgehammer, I was scouring the internet looking for any resource, discussion on the topic, especially from people who had firsthand experience. So if it's 20, 25 people who find these videos, I think that's great. Like you were saying, Cristiano, like, this is new. There's not many resources on this. We're figuring this out in real time. I told myself, because I benefited so much from people like Kenneth and anyone who had kind of made it to the other side and then was coming back to share their story. I told myself, I was like, okay, I want to do that too. I want to be able to, once I'm feeling better, I want to be able to talk about it. I want to be able to be that light for someone else, or that proof that this won't complete. I mean, it may pulverize you, but you will rebuild. You will come back. You will heal. And I'm feeling that now. So I feel a duty inside myself that I've never felt before, that I'm like, oh, I have to talk about this. And in my real life, I talk about SSRI withdrawal with like anyone who is remotely interested in it, because it's not talked about a lot. And
Right.
And because of that, most people just remain on their pills like I did, and not to pressure anyone to get off their pills, but just trying to be a resource for other people who are searching, because I remember being in that position. So I hope these videos find people who are looking for.
Well, I'll say why this helps me is because I have so many people who are just into therapy and into all these things. I'm not quite, I do believe in healing, but it's just, I was just talking to a person yesterday, and I said I didn't like therapy. The last, 8 therapists I talked to didn't work out. She was like, well, you got to get this kind of therapist, or that kind, you got to find when you connect with. And I just like, leave me alone. I mean, I just, I've given up on it. I just don't buy into it because, well, there's like these these YouTube therapists, and you see that they're all just really trying to work their own problems out. And I guess I just don't follow people, so much. I don't. I mean, they offer a little bit of insight, but they're not worth giving up your own opinions for. No one knows more than I do about my situation, and it's just kind of pointless to follow a therapist or a certain psychologist or a certain movement in psychology because they're just as lost as we are. I mean, so I guess this just provides a place where people go to other methods because those are just really worn out for me. Those are tiring, and
Greg, have
I
you
get,
had a
tired of the chatter. I get tired of the chatter. You know what I mean? So,
Greg, have you had a chance to entertain? There's a pamphlet that accompanies the Course in Miracles. It's called Psychotherapy. Help me out, Cristiano. Psychotherapy Principles and Practice.
right.
The addendum, and it explains how psychotherapy. Because Jesus, basically, the Course in Miracles is psychotherapy on steroids. It's how psychotherapy is supposed to. How the client-patient relationship is supposed to be the healing, modality.
Right.
That very few, in order to be a successful psychotherapist, or I would say a healer, has to be able to know the truth about themselves and hold the truth about you, while we're telling them a whole bunch of stories that we are still believing in. That's what a psychotherapist does. And intuitively can catch a fly ball here and there. Before I began to really wake up, I'd probably seen about 15 or 20 psychotherapists. That's not including the psychiatrists.
Well, it's just I don't want to go into it, but I guess I still have issues. But it's always it's like with psychiatry. It's no longer pills, and then it's TMS, and then it's all these other things. And then it's just I've given up on the whole game. I mean, it's like they're still trying to put forth new things, and it's just like I just give up on it, and I don't know. It gets old. It gets very old to hear about all this, again and again and again. I don't know. I have a friend, and she's just telling me about, this insight or that insight, and I don't know. I'm just not playing the game anymore, I've given up on all of it. So it doesn't matter what the new theory is. I just don't care anymore. So, this place gives me a little bit of sanity.
Well, and Greg, maybe hey, if this group's all about reframing, I'll offer a potential reframing for you. You tried out therapy. It's not that it didn't work or that you failed at it. You just are now looking elsewhere. It's like, it's like if this is a journey, then there's going to be all these little, side detours along the way of, I mean, it's the same like with going down the route of these medications, it's like sometimes it can be helpful, right? Depending on what stage you're in. I ain't ever going back, but I look back at a previous version of myself, and I think, and Kenneth, you've said this too, where it's like maybe that's what I needed at that time. Who knows, and maybe therapy helped you at some point, or maybe it didn't. But it sounds like you're just in a new space in your journey.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe in healing, but I mean, you just look at everything from a different angle, and yeah, kind of in the boat with Kenneth, that the story doesn't even matter, that the story is it's an illusion, you know. It's kind of like, you know, you try to, you know, fix what you can, but then you just got to give up on a lot of it. I mean, because it doesn't even matter, you know, it doesn't, I don't know. After a while, it's, I think even Carl Jung said himself, he said neuroses wear themselves out. You know, you can keep doing this story and you can keep trying to correct it, but at some point you've got to give it up. Not because it's not worth healing, but it's just not broken. You know what I mean? I'm not broken. There's nothing to fix. You know, this all happened the way it was supposed to happen.
And Greg, you've earned the authority to make that statement. This is why this group is not for young. I don't know, a lot of young people would just look at us and say, "You guys are a bunch of crazy old farts." We've earned the authority to say it doesn't work, and that's actually, instead of a moment of jumping off, you know, the Brooklyn Bridge, it's a moment in my story that Eckhart Tolle describes as, it doesn't work. Now that's how interesting. It doesn't work. It was the sublime kind of like,
yeah.
And beyond that, to notice there is something that does work. I can't taste it, touch it, smell it, you know, hear it or see it, but there is something that does work, and it's not based on the five senses. So that's
right.
That's where, yeah.
Yeah, I guess you could say I'm too old for the game anymore. I don't want to do it, you know.
What's like that movie?
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, it's like that movie Office Space. You ever see that movie?
Yeah, I love it.
It's a great movie, and it's really all about like the lens in which you view the world in some ways, right? It's like this guy, he's going to his dead-end job, he hates everything about it. Everything in his life is a drag, you know, from the commute to the people bothering him in the office. And then and his relationship with his wife is not doing so well either. So they go to a couples therapy session, and the therapist kind of puts him in this hypnotic state. And the hypnotist therapist who's doing this to him gets him in this very calm state, and then dies of a heart attack, leaving our main character stuck in this calm state, which is super goofy and fun. But I love it because then he goes to work and he's viewing everything through this different lens, this lens in which, you know, is he enlightened or however you want to see it. But creates for a lot of funny scenes and everything. But I think it's really profound because nothing in his life really changed. It's just his perception, the lens in which he's viewing it. So I feel like that's what we're doing too. When we're coming off these pills, it's like, man, if you want to view it as the medicine that I really need that's fixing me, I'm gonna slowly move away from that. Like, well, that will make me sicker. Yeah. You know, it's like, because that's the lens in which you're viewing it. If you can figure out a way to shift that perspective and tell yourself a very different story, it's amazing what ends up happening. So anyway, I'm just rambling on about the
that's
entire
true.
point of this group, but it's powerful.
Well, you know,
just something to say about that.
Go ahead.
What Chris just said. Chris also said, you know, that his whole perspective changed in that movie just by changing his perspective, and everything changed just by that. And I've experienced that in my life personally, in terms of whether my circumstances were exactly the same, but I'm blissful in one state and just not feeling anything. I was like, this is just awful in another state, and nothing's changed. My external circumstances, nothing's changed. And there's that movie, I can't remember that movie, Chris, maybe you might know, with Rachel McAdams, and where they're time travelers. The son and the father are time travelers. I don't know if you've seen that movie. I wish I just can't remember the name of that movie. But
Blast from the Past?
No, it's Rachel McAdams and that blonde and that English guy. I can't remember. I can't remember the name of the movie. Where it's not Blast from the Past, where they relive I can maybe I'll send it to Kenneth. Know the movie when I find out, and he'll send it to you. But you must watch it specifically for that scene in terms of what you just said now. He relives the day into he goes back in time and relives one day, and everything is morbid. He's a lawyer, and he goes out and signs contracts. Everything is just a drag, and he's just seeing his day with his friends and the work day and his family and his girlfriend. He comes home and he's tired and he's depressed and he just wants to die. And then he goes and he says, let's do this differently. And he goes back and he relives exactly the same day. But the only thing that's changed is his attitude, his perspective of the day.
Right.
And he's doing it with such a light state, such a state of joy, such a state of lightness and fun. Everything was a joke. Everything wasn't real. It was like the cosmic joke of the day in terms of let's just enjoy it how it is. Let's not take it seriously at all. Because whatever challenges you get through a day, it's really not that serious. And his whole perspective changed just in reliving exactly the same day. That's
Are you talking about? Are you talking about with Bill Murray or?
I was gonna say it's not kind of
no. That's Groundhog Day. Also, that's Groundhog Day, which is also true.
Yeah.
Is also true, but it's not that. It's not that movie. I also love Groundhog Day, but it's not that one. It's the other one. I'm trying to think of. I'll send the link to. It's a great movie. Just that scene because I used to go to Course of Miracles group years ago, and they spoke about the movie a number of times specifically for that scene. Yeah.
Well, one thing I was, that's great to look at it.
Before you go on, I'm gonna wrap up the recording. We're coming on an hour. I'll keep the Zoom room open. But this is Kenneth Price on Sunday, January 15th. This is our 60th recording for the Sunday morning Zoom call for the ministry I'm hosting, psychiatricsobriety.com. Thrilled to have Chris, Cristiano, and Greg. Just folks, we're backing out of the. What's the tagline of this ministry? For the courageous souls who have chosen to exit psychiatry and permeate the veils of mental illness. Like, I couldn't be more thrilled. My God, my YouTube channel's got like 80 of these Zoom calls alone. People of the courageous souls, courage. I'm blessed. So leave your comments below and join us on a Sunday. I need your participation. May the force be with you. God bless. Bye.
Bye-bye. What?